Hello, friends. Welcome, episode 61. It's fortunate to have Rachel, my wife, join us today. I'm going to ask her some questions, interview her a little bit, and see what unfolds here. Um, yeah, I don't know if you've introduced yourself in the past, but not everyone's seen the videos. So, do you mind sharing what it is that you're into and what your offerings are for clients and such?
Sure. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So I'm a intuitive wellness coach, and what that means for me is that I really enjoy holding space for people to help them tune in to their deeper inner knowing, which I feel like is the intuition and the wise self, the soul self speaking. And I find this to be the most effective, in my experience. It's been the most effective in holding space for others, because there's something about when we are looking for help and support, which I feel like is essential in moments in time in our lives, that we are not handing over our power to someone else. And so what I love to do is give opportunity for others to tune into their own personal power, and how the relationship with a coach or other therapist, friend, can be empowering, rather than handing over your energy, slipping more into kind of a victimhood, which is something I've had great experience with, and in many ways. So I like to offer really my experience more than the training I've had, or just life experience really is I what comes with me in every session, and mostly that and getting out of the way. So whatever is coming up in that present moment is being co-created with other to assist in what wants to be developed, or what wants to be heard or felt, or witnessed. Um, yeah. So some of the experiences, or I would say maybe specialties, things I really love tapping into with people is yeah, feeling into trauma, and shadow work in the ways of polarity and integration, sexual integration, shadow work, and um, and really using death as an advisor, as a guide, to unlock fears, and really freeing up the energy body and tuning into the subtle energies, helps us, and can free us up to dip our toes into dreaming. And what is that? I'm not going to define that. But it does feel good when there's a dreamy space, or when one slows down and goes into the deeper states of relaxation. There is something there, especially one can feel it. Well, everyone is so different. A way that I feel it, and I've heard a lot of others feel it, is right in between the space of waking and asleep. And that can happen during the day or at night, but it is a beautiful, rare state, I feel like, to play with, play inside of.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's a wonderful way to introduce what you do, and a lot of the clients that I've had come um, into my world. I've recommended Rachel to spend some time with, and most of them don't come back, which is a good sign that she's doing really amazing work. So, especially for females, it's there are things that I am not privy to or aware of, and never would be able to be, being a man and not being a woman. So it's just makes a lot of sense to um, acknowledge that difference. And so I've been privileged to have Rachel's guided meditations for myself, and I know that a lot of clients get a lot of benefit from how calming and how therapeutic it is to be given to have that kind of space held, and the guidance that she offers, and it sort of feels very unconditional and supportive in a very unique way. I've worked with a lot of really powerful people, as well as Rachel has, but she has a very unique touch to that kind of support. So appreciate that. And I don't know if you want to share, your history with chronic illness, and kind of, since that's a piece that has helped you to discover and face challenges that a lot of people also have experience with. However you want to share regarding that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's not something I feel like I've shared a lot about in the past videos. If some of you have seen our storytelling and the different ones, maybe I touched upon it in those, but yeah, I would say that, well, illness may be one of the most pivotal gifts that I was given in this life. Why? I wouldn't have said that, 10 years ago. It is something that brought my attention to my body. It was almost because it was forced. There was so much pain and dysfunction at a really early age. So when I was 3 months old, I had severe eczema from head to toe as an infant, and was put on steroids, topical ointment, and they upped the dose, every year often until I was 18. And was so fortunate to run into a woman that knew so much. She was a yogini, colon therapist, nutritionist, dietitian. Just she kind of did a lot of things. She was also in a group called Power Training, my first cult, one of many. And it was up in Canada. I think it may still be going. But she introduced me to a whole new way of living, and I was able to get out of a lot of pain. And earlier, let me see, I'll go back. My parents took me to what was called, back in, what was it? I'll date myself, 1970 or 1980 maybe. Took me to a quack doctor, a naturopath, that did muscle testing, clicked my heels together, and knew that I was allergic to dairy and peanut butter. And of course, I shifted my diet for 30 days and became completely eczema free for the first time in my life. And thus began not only a struggle with, illness, but a complicated relationship with food, because certain foods then created suffering. And most everybody was eating those foods and celebrating with those foods. And so lot of experience in those realms as well. But yeah, so yeah, the struggle just really, there was this battle that went on in my body, and I was able to actually, I'm a little stumped. It's a vast body of work, the chronic illness journey. And I don't speak of I speak the chronic illness as a past tense. I still have a lot of suffering. It is just leaps and bounds different. But yeah, I'm very, very close or careful with my words around how I speak about illness or colds or flus and pain, because it has made such a huge difference and shift to view and relate to pain, suffering, and illness in just a whole new way. It very much felt like life was against me from, infancy, and the agitation, aggravation in eczema is how my nervous system was developed. And so there was just a level of fight or flight that was normalized in my system, and how my whole being developed around that nervous system, I feel like. And I just feel really lucky to be aware of that. Aware of my nervous system, aware of releasing the victimhood of illness. And that was not an easy thing to do. Whether it's, certain traumas in my life or illness, learning the difference between being the victim of an experience versus carrying that victimhood throughout your life. Those are two very separate things. And so it's not saying it's okay and it feels good to have chronic illness and I'm just okay with it. It's not this passive thing, but it's honoring that it happened and giving it time and attention to be felt and integrated, so that you're not carrying all of this with you. And I believe that trauma and chronic illness actually are interlinked. I'm sure there is, Body Keeps the Score. There's a lot of books and things that speak to this. And that's been my experience as well, how they get intertwined. And the beautiful unraveling of that illness knot and that suffering is, to me, the gold that led me directly into my soul experience, or my subtle energy body. There were a few things like slowing down your thoughts, slowing down your body, slowing down your reactions. These are parts of how you can heal trauma. And that isn't something we can make a decision in our mind and then just do. There are steps and tools and support when given support and attention to these things on a daily basis, really begins to shift perception of suffering.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could go on and on about that.
Yeah.
The gold.
Yeah, I mean,
Well
you're
said.
welcome to. It's I've witnessed you or and heard some of your stories, and especially like you really allowing things to release from your body, like what happened with your hands, and you,
Mm.
those are really valuable things to share if you're open to it, because it is sort of a. I mean, we are creatures that have the capacity through our perception to release, um, like you said, we're able to let go of things, but not just because we tell ourselves, but because things sort of line up, and all of a sudden the body allows, and that there's enough silence, and there's enough some sort of moment in which you know we realize that there's an opportunity to truly let go, and um,
Mm.
so I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool.
The cool thing is that I have someone to remember shit. I yeah, part of um my dynamics is memory loss, and I'm getting that back. But yeah, um, the yeah, it's just great to have someone that has been with you through it and can remind you of these moments. Uh, One of the moments was, I don't know, yeah, probably like 21 or something, when I had the most severe eczema was on my hands, and um, I was still struggling with eating the things that I knew would alleviate the eczema, and that struggle was at a height. I don't actually remember, what was going on at that time specifically. And I guess that's what Joel is speaking to, is that this isn't, in my experience, like spirituality isn't about push or try or change. I mean, I did all that. It just led me into hard corners, and more suffering. And so allowing the body, like giving attention to it, just gentle, and not needing, when we're in pain, we want it to go away. Like, this is our greatest desire, and to alleviate the suffering. And so we just get caught in this loop of like trying and trying and trying to get some break from that pain. Um, and many moments in my experience, it's been when I've surrendered, when I've given up desire, expectation to make that happen, or for that to happen. And so yeah, in this story, I believe it was a surrender moment. I was in a Indian food restaurant, and with beautiful, food smells, and different tapestries and music and people all around me. And I was with someone else, and I don't know what we were talking about, but oftentimes in restaurants I end up in tears. It's always like a profound, like some sort of existential breakdown, or yeah, Joel knows this. Yeah, and it it so I believe I was talking, and I was just holding my hands up, and just tears started to come down. And as tears were coming down, energy was just coming off of my hands. And that was, to me, just a organic type healing. Um, that, you know, a shaman wouldn't be able to give me. Like, I was just gifted that, you know. It was this surrender and this moment, and I'm sure a lot of you have had some of these experiences that just it just happens. And that at that point after that restaurant, I I never experienced eczema on my hands in that way, in that severe way. And except for I did get it right after the birth of my son. I had a lot of eczema, that some inflammation that came up. Um, but yeah, it was a profound shift, and you know, we forget about it and we go on and then we do the same. You know, how many times since I was 20, like 30, almost 30 years ago, have I looped into that like same like struggle, surrender, and then some sort of magical, universal God, you know, intervention that shifted everything. Um,
Hmm.
and that's what I like to support in my connecting with clients, is that for them, because it's for all of us, anyone, at any time. I
Yeah,
believe.
absolutely. Yeah, it's beautiful. So, yeah, it's like I think since we're kind of talking about the past and bringing up our history with teachers and cults and stuff, you know, we were both really focused on learning about energy, and we're interested in being in the forest, and we had some really altered states we were reaching. We were seeking those altered states as out of curiosity, or because we were reading the Castaneda books, or whatever it was. And so we did work with. There was big healings. There was sweat lodges. There was, attempts to fast, and or there was fasting. There was really cool experiences with, you know, allowing the body to let go through just not putting anything in it. Um, and that's a big thing that people are starting to realize, is that the the way we've been taught in school and in the world and through media is that there's a need to have a doctor tell you what to take, or, and there's usually, with typical doctors, it isn't about food. It's just about pills and surgeries. And then you got the naturopaths, who it's all very much about food, and then a lot of people resist that because, it's very difficult to stop eating the things that you find enjoyable, like food addiction. And so it's a real challenging journey to be in a situation in which the things that you want, that everyone else is consuming, to be the oddball out that can't eat that, or you do anyways, and then you feel guilt and shame potentially. And I've talked a lot about guilt and shame being actually one of the things that is it's almost more unhealthy than the thing itself that is causing the inflammation or the reaction. So I just wanted to add that, and just add to also that, when we reference this fact that we've been in cults and stuff, other people who were in these groups with us may not refer to these groups as cults, and that's okay. Like we don't mean,
We just giggle.
yeah.
It's no offense. It's
We look at the world. I mean, I look at the world as we're all kind of in a cult, like whether it's through the media or
religion, cult.
Yeah. So, no judgment against the people we've been in medicine circles with, or students of. Obviously, we have issue with some shit that went down, and there's, I'm not, I'm willing to be blunt and honest about some of the details, but my point being is that there's some of these medicine circles are still operating to this day and are not referring to themselves as cults and such. So, um, everyone to each to their own, and we are all contracted, I believe, to meet certain people in this world, and
Mm.
and we benefit from learning and meeting each other, and yeah, there's just something to that, like rather than be at odds with people because of the disharmonies or um, whatnot. Like I refer to a lot of my teachers as shadow teachers, um, and I learned probably I've had some teachers that I don't consider shadow teachers, but I probably learned more from being in a relationship with shadow teachers than I did from the ones that were not shadow teachers. And so I really appreciate all of it, and kind of believe it was all almost necessary and designed in a sense to gain perspective and to understand the difference, so that as we hold space for our clients, and we're not trying to be shamans or offer anything like what we went through, but we're just trying to offer a means, a place for people to process and learn how to release and let go and discover that the universe is actually trying trying to support them, um, and that we often look at the world as if it's uh, out to get us, or that we've got something, that we've done something wrong, and therefore we're being uh, there's a reaction or repercussions for that. But these are all really powerful lessons that we're all going through, and it's a really challenging just to come into an awareness of our potential, and to sort of lift the veil and move into altered states. It does open you up, um, and so yeah. With that, I just was wondering if you do some really cool stuff with your clients that I'd love to hear more about. You've talked about polarity, and kind of what the how to observe when something is triggering to you, and how that might, like when like shadow work, when something is when we have a major reaction to the way a person is behaving or acting, um, and then why is it that that trigger is so strong, and like what can we do with, how can we learn about ourselves when we're offended or in reaction to other, like whether it's a shadow teacher or just people we're observing in the world, or road rage, or all the different things that can come up in this uh, in this world.
Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, I first just wanted to say, the awareness of that the universe is us, like in we are the universe, is my view of it, and that correlates with polarity. I'll touch back on that. But yeah, this energetic line that's talked about, like as in Kundalini energy running through the chakras. I believe that we are connected to earth and sky through this energetic force. And I believe that it's possible that our hearts maybe is like our soul spark, or, that universal spark is how I would say it. That we have infinite wisdom inside of us, and that some of us um, are born into this seeking, and this seeking is about a coming home, I believe, to all this vast infinite knowledge, um, that tends to be, I don't know if it is our heart, or like there's this soul spark though that I believe that we were born with, right? There was a spark, this magical light that we are, that are instantly a cocoon, I feel like, was formed, and uh, that we're remembering. We're remembering over and over and over again. And I don't know what we're doing here. Like, what is this process? It's fucking wild. And so everything I say is just, what I've been curious about, and what I think I know. I don't think I know really much of anything. Just always curious and asking questions, and beginning to ask myself questions. And why am I more into asking myself questions? Because I believe that it we all have a perception of our reality, and so it's unique, and we know the answers probably more than anyone for our specific life, not something outside of ourselves, and mental knowledge of what's happened in our history, and maybe what's going to therefore what's going to happen in the future. I'm talking about, we know the best knowledge for ourselves in this moment, what we need, what we desire, what we really want out of life, and for others. And so what gets in the way of that? The triggers, the dreaded triggers. Boom, boom, boom. We are fighting ourselves, and, or the devil and the angel on each shoulder. These are the polarities. And I believe, or, studied or researched in the last 4 years, shadow work and polarity systems. So we are caught in this system that we are all born into, or not all of us. Some places in the world, tribal living, very different systems. I'd say the majority of North America, the majority of the world is born into the polarized system, where you get yourself into this push-pull, this double bind of saying, I don't want this, but I want that. And so our life will really bring us things that will trigger what we're not wanting. And that happens over and over again. That is our subconscious, our shadow, wanting us to look at something. And that's usually like projected into other, and that's a mirror. So the subconscious is for us. It's not against us. This isn't happening to us. It's happening for us to be more conscious, to allow what's in the unconscious to come forward and to be seen. A lot of our traumas are about rejecting certain things to keep us safe. And so that protection, the rejection of things is our protection. And once we allow, well, let's step deeper into that. When trauma begins to heal, there's more opportunity to allow the subconscious to be seen, because it's not as scary. You're not getting the massive trigger. There's trauma triggers, and then there's triggers. Trauma triggers are the amygdala's flying off. You do not have any room to choose. A trigger, you have room to choose and consider your reaction or response. And there's a development there, and it's beautiful. You can get a millisecond moment to choose, like, and it grows, and you get a larger capacity and resiliency. But that can take time. So if you're there, be absolutely gentle on yourself around all of this. Like, yeah, shame and guilt. There's no. Everyone has their individual undoing and becoming more conscious. It's not something to really go after. life will just present and present, and the allowing and the surrender. Just gonna say that over and over because I continually need to hear that, so I'm gonna say it for myself here too. But yeah, the push pull and those dynamics. When we start to know what we fear and what we desire, that's when we're really working with this system, this belief system that we entered into that said, don't do that, that's bad. Don't do that, that's good. And it's keeping us in this state of like constantly in the past and future, in the present moment, just tuning into what, like, this is what I have, this is what I don't have, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, this is who I am, this is who I am not. Like, we're constantly like desiring what is not right here and right now. And this is the theater, this is the drama of our life, this is the stage of which we play on all the time. And it is when we can rise, levitate slightly off of that stage and become the witness. That's when we can really sink into our fears, as to say, why this fear? And maybe we don't even ask, maybe there's no question that's needed. Maybe it's just to feel the fear all the way through with no dialogue, no needing to know why. That's more the somatic type therapy that I've spoken about before. And yeah, just being able to witness that within your own body and feel into your senses allows you to deepen into what your true desires are now. And I'm not speaking of like desire in the sense of fantasy, but true heart's desire. And coming to what you really, really, really want, which is one of my facilitators always reminded me in Shakti Shiva Academy. And yeah, so maybe I lost track. I got really
it's good.
Dreamy in that explanation.
It was really well said, actually. I always get more from it when you talk about it, and I didn't do the training you did, so I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, there's a lot there. It's we all, I find myself at work resisting so much and not wanting to face the things that would really benefit me to face, but it's okay to be where we're at and to realize that we're we're going to have really strong moments in our lives, and we're going to have times where we're not feeling up for kind of not as intensely interested in the transformation process. And in construction, I deal with really people that get very upset and throw a lot of energy, and the ego battles can get really intense if you're not listening. But if you're open and looking for the opportunities, there's always really beautiful lessons and discoveries in how to transition from a potential battle or even argument into just finding a solution that will not get you to win the battle, but actually just neutralize it and find a way forward that doesn't cause further ego battles down the line. And if you're creative and listening, then people won't even really notice. it won't, and it'll just be sort of a sleight of hand, and things shift, and so that helps. That kind of lesson plan has helped me uh, to then deal with other things in life, like outside of work or in relationships, and um, obviously in sexual relationships, it's so much harder when there's triggers. The sexual shadow work is so much more. There's just so much more to it because you're exchange. There's an exchange of power when you have a sexual partner, and if that exchange of power isn't, you know, being if we go into patterns and habits, then we kind of lose perspective, which is very typical because we often take people in our lives for granted. We take life for granted, and then we have needs that we want met, and we're trying to, who's going to clean this and who's going to do that, and all the different things that come up. So life is always, unless you're gonna, I mean, you can hermitize, I guess. You could find a way to do things very differently and alternatively so that you avoid triggers. And I see a lot of people in the world do that, but it doesn't. It's like the lesson plan still finds you no matter where you go or what you do. There's just no hiding from oneself, um, and so we, rather than, I think that there's some sort of place where you arrive where there's no longer going to be triggers, um, or that you've reached some sort of state of mastery. I don't believe that exists. I've met people that claim to have reached these, states of enlightenment, but often, if you really dig a little deeper, they're trying to uphold something that can't possibly be permanent, and so they've put on a mask and they're trying to live a life that is unrealistic and dishonest, and then that creates a totally different dynamic. And that's what we dealt with in our cults, I think, was people that were claiming to have reached a certain state and putting themselves above, rather than recognizing that they were, because often a teacher gets into a state in which they don't realize that they're learning just as much from the students as the students would be learning from the teacher, and sort of this disharmony starts to occur. And I've talked a lot about that, is that our ego, often when we're a victim and we feel like we're less than, and then we sort of come out of victimhood, and then we start to take care of ourselves and feel strong and step into our power and reclaim our energy, and then the ego sort of is intelligent. It finds a way to hijack us and make us feel like, now you're special, or you've done something, you've achieved something, and so then you're going to go through a whole new level or a dance with the ego that's yeah, I think in a way is even more dangerous and more detrimental to your overall well-being. So I appreciate this concept around shadow work and polarities and all that, because it's kind of infinite, and there's just so much to it. But yeah, I think also just looking at our history together and all that we've been through, it'd be good if you could share some of the highlights of the variety of apprenticeships we've been in, and what you've learned from the past around, whether it was with Nana or through the time we spent learning magical passes, or if there's anything you felt like sharing in that regard.
Yeah, it's been quite a spell reintegrating what I've learned in my past and these different, just so many, from that power training to a Native American neo-traditionalist group, international group, to just an exquisite, beautiful Native American beauty, Southern Belle, and an amazing Native American elder, taught me how to sing bluegrass and cure cancer with bluegrass. Well, my daughter was in my belly growing, so she was grown on bluegrass, and I learned to sing again, or in a new way. Yeah, there's so many beautiful moments in these times. And then one of the most profound times of my dreaming life was within a workshop, a tensegrity workshop. So yeah, clear green and the magical passes and meeting wolves and having lucid dreams with a wolf, Simba. And then, so I'm just swimming in memory here. It was all so profound, and I feel really grateful for my life's experiences, and I still question, like, what kind of strange life has it been, and what does one do with all of this experience? Because we went to like little college here and there, but as soon as I was 18, we were like gone. Well, he was 4 years younger than me, but so he did it earlier. But yeah, so this has just been such an abstract life. And then we had children, and then we tried to like sink into being normal and part of the system. That didn't work. So there's just been a profound remembering and integration because of the extreme nature of the trauma, or the unique way that my trauma presented, and how it was also wrapped up with shamanism and energy work and healing and sexuality and sexual healing and opening the gates to another door. I was being bombarded by spirits or ghosts, or asking for help. And once I became a mother, I learned that I had a choice, and somehow I put on the brakes and shut the door and said no more, and a huge boundary. But when I shut that door, I also shut the door to a very big part of myself. And I shut the door to connecting a large part with the mysteries. I mean, my children and I had such a magical time in nature. It was more of a Waldorfy type experience, their childhood, mixed in with caregiving and extreme volatile fighting. And, it was just like a mix of pure chaos and pure magic. So I didn't shut the door on the magical world and realms, but I shut my door on my past. and really, but it festered. And that's when my body, to circle back around to chronic illness, where my body really shut down. And I believe that shutdown was a consistent call to become more aware of the trauma that was locked in my body. So, more awareness to my body. My body was calling to me by laying me down, laying me down. I spent about probably 15 years of my adulthood as a mother raising my children, raising them mostly from bed, in and out of the hospital. Um, just whenever I got energy, I would burn out, use it, and go back into bed. I was never taught how to care for myself. So, a beautiful group called She Recovers, about, I don't know, 6 years ago, came into my life, and we had separated, and it was pretty volatile and extreme. And they said, and I also, in my coaching class course around that time, the term radical self-care came up. And my whole mind, I mean, now I think a lot of people have heard that word, that term over and over. But back then, oh my gosh, that was just a new concept that I had never, it just was a full yes. That is exactly what I need. I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm going to learn. And as much as my body kept calling to me, I think that was probably the most pivotal moment. Just going back, the amount of energy, whether it was traumatic or beautiful or shamanic, that happened to my being, it was outside of my resiliency zone. And so this is what then I learned about what is a resiliency zone, and what is like capacity, or what I say is like capacity for totality. The reality of your world in fullness, totality, and where is your resiliency within your capacity, and how they work together. And I still don't exactly know, but I love those two concepts. It ended me, as I continued to not listen to my body. I mean, I did in ways and the best that I could. I was still really shaming myself. I had poor dialogue, poor meaning, when I made mistakes, I was my worst enemy. Like, I was beating myself up. And that's the time when you really need yourself the most. You need to be your own best friend at all times. And how do we do that? My gosh. The concept of failure and success, and we're just caught in these. So I just was failing and failing and failing to make money, failing to be the best mom, failing to be a spiritual aware being. I mean, the list was long. And that's just, yeah, like we talk about ego. That's this polarized system that we're talking about, keeps us locked in those perceptions that just aren't even true. They're just of a system that we keep getting the reflection of. So I got lost in this system because I'm one of those who, probably many of you are, just feel like not born of this world, like that, but it's really not born, I believe, of this system itself. The system isn't from the Earth Mother. I mean, in a sense, it is for us. We're not a victim of the system. It's just we're caught, most of us. And learning how to not go to battle with the system, and to learning not go to battle with myself, and not go to battle with him, with not going to battle, and finding out the core of that battle. And most of it was to be gentle, to befriend myself, to self-care in ways that, oh my gosh. And it took a lot. And it took, little baby steps. And when I tried to push, like I was like, oh, it's self-care, I'm going to try, push. And no, just touch in, touch in, touch in. And um, yeah, that's what got me out of a full year of being what I call my zombie state, which I think I've mentioned before, uh, which was probably 8 years ago or 9 years ago, not quite sure, where it all came to a head. My body just said, actually, was in a car accident on Donner Pass with my children, and this magical thing happened where the car spun out. It was spring, and we ended up going to hit this barrier, and somehow all the traffic on the pass disappeared. Our car spun around. My wheel never I never it never went out of control. It literally just lifted up, spun around, and hit the guardrail. But as I was going to this guardrail, I I had like an NDE, which like a near death experience, that I went into the two scenarios. My kids and I were either going off this cliff or we were going to hit that guardrail and we were going to be okay. And I saw us all going off the cliff. Um, and it wasn't like I knew that was our fate. It was that I needed to get okay with death
Mm.
and my children dying, which actually was the most fearful thing. But instead of going into fear, this crazy mother bear part of me sank into the wheel, sank into the car, and my kids didn't really know that we were just moving. And so they're like, Mom, what's happening? And I just said, it's okay, kids. It's okay. No matter what, we're going to be okay. And so I wanted our last words going off this cliff into death to be peace and nurturing and loving rather than full of fear. And I mean, I couldn't have tried to make myself act that way. I was a very fearful person, and still am in ways. But in that moment, some death just, I feel like, washed us. And then we hit the guardrail and we spun off and we landed in a ditch on the other side. So we went all the way over and all the way back. And then all the traffic started moving. It was like, or coming. And I righted the car and I drove them back to school and, was in shock. And then a few months later, my body completely shut down. So what that felt like was a stroke. My heart was palpitating. I had become numb completely on one side. Circulation wasn't happening properly. And then a whole list of symptoms. Like when I wrote it out, it was close to 50 different things were happening in my body at once. So, one could call it like a shamanic death, and I feel like I've had a handful in this lifetime. I've felt like I was dying many times, multiple times in my life, and kept getting a new life. And in those moments, I just thought, wow, if I ever get to live again, this is what I want to do. And then I'd forget, and, But yeah, that rising out of that zombie state, not really being able to walk or talk or even breathe properly, was one of the greatest gifts. And it was, one of the hardest times of our family's life, for Joel's life. And there was so many unknowns. I was in the hospital. I didn't believe in Western medicine very much. Since I was 18, the steroidal cream and the doctors that, never really helped me, I turned around and really went into the natural alternative healthcare path. and have learned a variety of, Chinese medicine, cranial sacral, structural integration therapy, just a long list of great modalities that I've learned about over the years, and have been blessed to have those kinds of care practices and practitioners that have just gifted me with their attention and caring and love. Um, but in that moment, and I have had a surgery, so I did turn around when I was told I had ovarian cancer. I thought I was going to die again. Um, I did eventually. My body spoke and said, "Get surgery," because there was pressure on my nerve that was debilitating, and I did have a tumor removed, and I'm so glad I did. And so I do believe in utilizing everything on earth, and I do prefer natural, herbal, but mostly the wisdom of our own bodies. I'm learning even more um, supplements and things to try and alter what is happening. I'm learning more and more to just to tap in and actually sweat, sweat and move, and stop and slow down and breathe. So sauna blanket and like movement's hard for me to like run, or I'm not able to like work out or run, but the sweating is such a profound shift in so many ways, and that's a whole nother interview. But yeah, coming out of that, going to the hospital and having them say there's nothing wrong and sending me home, that was one of the most fearful time in my life, and the point of surrender. I think I went into shock. Of all the other symptoms I was going through, I also went into shock, because when you go to the emergency room as a person that doesn't believe, doesn't want to utilize Western medicine until the last, like, okay, I'm going to die if I don't go. And so I went, and I was like, oh, I actually am going to die here, because no one knows what's going on. And they made it worse, actually. So yeah, I then began to deepen my practice with self-care, which then became a concept of like self-love, which then became a practice of understanding that we just are love. And that it's running through our system all the time, that we are supported, whether we're aware of that or not, this infinite loving support from ancestors, the earth mother, the stars. We are all connected to these different spaces, different layers of time. This isn't linear. This life that we have, I don't believe that it really ends. Our body may end, but our soul spark will go on. And I don't know much about all of that. I don't like to define much, but I do have a sense of all this that has happened to me, that the more I play with death, or can face what death brings to me and confronts me with, the more I understand that this is a temporary experience that will lead to another, probably temporary experience that will continue to unfold as we are in those moments. I believe that we have moments after death, and I don't know what those moments will look like, but I think we'll understand a lot more.
Wow. Powerful share, Rachel. Thank you. It's a lot. And yeah, just a sliver of, I mean, you just gave us wide range of your story, but didn't go into super depths in the specifics. But it's just a good example of how much intensity you've been through and that we've been through, and thank you for sharing it. So yeah, I think it's a good way to sort of close it up. And if there's, do you want to let people know how they can get a hold of you, and then we could also put it in the description of the channel here?
So my email, is rachels1111@gmail.com. That's one of the best ways to get a hold of me. I am loosely on social media, Facebook and Instagram. I am launching more parts of my business, so I will be doing a YouTube channel coming up, and probably some courses and some classes that are forming right now with clients. And I'm off to Mexico soon this month to be with some beautiful clients to do a little retreat. And there will be more of that in the future. Definitely Montana will be probably a common retreat place. So if you're interested in nature immersions and kind of your, a lot of what I said, plus, the wild woman, diving into the awakening of the woman, sexuality, and that sort of thing. They're all co-creative spaces, and so not really defining them or labeling them, because I don't know what we would do until you sign up. So you're a part of that creation. But the offerings are going to be there. I love doing this, and will be continuing to be of support in the way that I can. And thank you for this.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Yeah, it's really cool. Really great way for people to get to know what you're offering, and very authentic. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you, friends. Till next time. Take care. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.